come to stop their suffering. And so then now our purpose then is very defined in the recovery meeting, is that we gather together to help each other stay clean, right? We help each other to overcome whatever the problem is, and it is in the helping that the actual therapeutic action occurs. This principle will work anywhere if we think about it that way. If we stop thinking about when we gather together with other people, we're not gathering together because there is a conflict. There may be a problem, but we're gathering together to alleviate the conflict. We're gathering together to alleviate the suffering, to alleviate the problem. And when we realize that it's actually in the service of alleviating the problem, that we find our own fulfillment. This is really, and this will make, this just changing this one thing when we gather together with other people, when we think about that. So we go on a little bit further. So we gather together for this purpose. We realize that we want to be helpful, and we've got ideas. We have ideas about how to be helpful. We have our opinions. We actually probably have specific opinions for each person that's gathered there. We know most of them, and then the ones that we don't know, they may say something, and we get some fixed ideas in our mind. Oh yeah, okay, I've got that person's number now. I know who they are, so I've got some ideas about what they should do. These are the things that need to be released, is our opinions about what needs to happen, our judgments about them. What we want to do is be open to this inspiration. So this is what I do when I go to a recovery meeting. In a recovery meeting, we have a moment of silence at the beginning. It's a good idea. It's a good idea to have this moment of silence. We've figured it out over the years that it's a good idea. So we take a moment of silence. And in that moment of silence, what I do is I ask, let me hear what I need to hear so that I can share what needs to be shared. So I'm removing my opinion by doing this. And I'm opening my ears, my mind, my heart to what's going to occur. Now, a lot of meetings we go to, they don't call for a moment of silence at the beginning of the meetings. I'm not recovery meeting. I say at work, well, hey, this is one of the reasons why it's not a bad idea to pray before you eat. Moment of silence. You don't even have to say a prayer. Just be quiet for a second. Be grateful, be quiet, be centered. Let me hear what I need to hear so that I can share what needs to be shared. Because I don't know otherwise. All I've got is opinions otherwise. So now when this happens, and as I said, I may have all sorts of ideas. I may have a long agenda of things that I want to present here. But if I say now, okay, I'm going to take my agenda and I'm going to give it to the group. This is my gift. My agenda is my gift to the group. And I'm going to remove my personal attachment and say, do with it as we will, together. And some of my ideas may be accepted, some of them may not be accepted, but it's got to be okay to me. It's not mine anymore. I've given it to the group. So we're going to apply this principle in living no matter where we go. When we say, if we're trying to solve a problem in the workplace and I come up with an idea, when I come up with the idea, you know what, I'm not even going to tell you if I don't think it's a good idea, right? I'm going to keep it to myself. I'm not even going to, so I think it's a good idea, so I put it out there. If I'm personally attached to it and you have a problem with it, I've got a problem with you. I got to think about it as just being a gift that I'm giving. So this focus on not being attached, relaxed. The reason I can be relaxed is I know that I'm not threatened. We're in the midst of creation. I've got to have this vision in my mind that I am a thought in the mind of God. I can't be threatened. I can't be hurt. I'm safe at all times. And according to this, throughout all eternity. So I need to remind myself of those things. I need to tell myself. It probably isn't that good of an idea if I tell the other people in the meeting that that's what I'm thinking, because they will misunderstand. But it's what I need to be reminding myself of, is that I am not under threat at any time. So I know that my purpose is to be of service. And I've accepted it. I actually know for sure, and this is my personal experience, I know that the only way that I can live a fulfilled life, actually feeling fulfilled, is if I feel like I'm being of service. I learned that the hard way. I learned that by doing all of the selfish things. I learned it by always looking for my own welfare in situations where it really wasn't appropriate. I learned that I only suffer when I'm self-centered. And I've learned that I'm happy when I am giving service, when I'm involved in this cooperation, when I'm involved in this idea, this sense of unity. And so I accept it. I accept that my job is to be of service. So that always leads me to the problem of, okay, what do I do? I'm supposed to be of service, and this is the thing that comes up. If the fact of the matter is, if we're thinking about life as being, if I want it to be fulfilled, that life has to be a life of service, then I'm always being presented with this question. Okay, I want to be of service, what do I do? And again, I may have all sorts of ideas, but I need to rely on this presence of a loving God to inform me as to what my specific role in this moment is. And if I'm paying attention, it will be revealed to me. If I'm paying attention and not worried about my own stuff, it will be revealed. And I will be able to go ahead and this state of mind is called group conscience state of mind. I want to establish myself in a mental state where I realize not only am I not alone, not only are there actually other people in the room, other people in my community, other people in my company, in the world, but that they're important, that they are part of me and I am part of them. That's the mindset that I want to have. And then to sit quietly and listen, to be very open and only to present what seems to be the correct thing to say. And this has it's like a gut feeling. I don't need to just keep talking. I can listen. I should actually listen more than I'm talking. I should hear and then I should, kind of work with people. What I'm hearing you say is this, because you know what? I misinterpret that stuff all the time. You may say something that triggers some ancient thing in the back of my mind of some other situation that happened before, and I've totally misinterpreted what you've said to me. So I'm going to understand that God is expressing at all times through all of creation. That means that God is expressing through me to you, through you to me, and also through everything that is happening between the two of us and all around us. Now, sometimes it seems as if something's expressing, but it's not God. It seems very contentious. It seems like there's a lot of threat, there's a lot of fear involved, but that's just the way I'm interpreting it. What I need to remember is that God is expressing. If I will open myself up to hear what is being given to me. Now I'm just going to make it really simple. Two things going on. Either I'm giving love or I'm asking for it. So now if I can get that idea in my mind, then I start to realize that other people are doing the same thing. Either they're giving love or they're asking for it. So the most contentious behavior is just a request for love. We may hear it as all sorts of other things. The people don't even realize that that's what they're doing. We don't even realize it. When we're being obnoxious, we don't realize it. But what's going on is we're feeling a lack of something, and I'm defining that as love, and we are looking for it to come to us. Once I realize that, then I can start to hear God express through other people, because even when they're saying things that are unpleasant, even when they're saying things I don't agree with, even when they're saying things that actually may even seem offensive to me, I start with the premise that they're asking for love. Now, here's my choice. I can give it to them. I can either give it to them like this, or I can give them love, which is really what they're asking for. Knowing that if I actually give them some violent response, even if it's just verbal, that all I'm doing is exacerbating the situation. But that if I give love, I can disarm the situation. So that's the idea. Okay, so I'll tell you a story. Some of you heard the story before, it's okay. Like I always say, if you heard the story, just be quiet, you need to hear it again. So here's the story. When I was 16 years old, I got a job in a restaurant. It was a Times restaurant, right next to the Times Theater downtown. And there's a woman who owned the restaurant, her name was Sylvia Deal. She was 4 foot tall and 4 foot wide. Actually, she was a little taller than 4 foot. She was probably a little wider than 4 foot too. But you get the idea. And she had been in the restaurant business her entire life. And she hired me. She said, I'll hire you. I'll teach you how to wait on tables. She said, I'll teach you how to be short order cook. I wasn't really good in the kitchen. It took me a little while to be good in the kitchen. She thought I could be serviceable as a waiter, waiting on tables. And so I started doing it, and I was just clumsy and just not. And she, after, I didn't even get through the whole day. And she brought me aside and she said, listen, she says, I'm going to tell you a few things. And if you do what I tell you, you are going to make more tips than any of the other wait people in the restaurant. Well, that got my interest because I was there for the tips. I mean, I was there for the money, period. You know, and in those days, you can imagine what the wages were. The wages weren't anything. You got to make the money on the, I think it still is that way. You have to make the money on the tips. So she said, I'm going to tell you these 3 things. And if you remember them and if you do them, you're going to do very well. So the first thing is, when you go to the table, when your guests come in and you go to the table, you bless the table. I'm 16 years old. I'm a 16-year-old hedonist, okay? So she's telling me, I'm going to go to the table, I'm going to bless the table. I said, no, wait a minute, what do you mean? You mean I'm going to pray? And I'm thinking, I know what bless means. That means pray, right? I said, you mean I'm going to pray for them? And she said, I don't care what you call it. She said, when you go to the table, have a good thought for the people at the table. Think something good at them, about them, however that works in your mind. Think something good when you go to the table. Greet them nicely, but in your mind, be thinking something good. So I said, okay, well, let me consider that for a while. She said, then the second thing is, pay attention to the room. You are a wait person, you are a servant, you need to be paying attention to the room so that you can see when you're needed. Don't be talking to the other waiter, don't be talking to the other waitress, pay attention to the room. See what's going on, and that way you will respond when you are needed. Well, that made some sense. And she said the third thing, and she said, you may think now that this is the most important thing, but it's really not. But you will now, you'll think this is the most important. Be efficient. Don't waste steps. Pay attention to what you're doing. Gather everything you can when you're going. So the whole, I mean, this is like the secret to be able to wait on tables all day long and not just, totally die, is that you don't take extra steps. You pay attention to what you're doing. You make sure you've got your trips all in order. So I said, okay, well, I'll give it a try. And it was amazing. It was amazing. I did it. I would actually try to have some kind of good thought for the people. And what I realized was I needed to be in the frame of mind when I approached the people that I was being hospitable. That I'm acting like I am kind of like their host, right? I'm being hospitable. I'm welcoming them. That's really as simple as it is. Now today I think about it in a slightly different way, but it's the same thing. In my mind, I want to be welcoming. You can act welcoming all day long, but if in your mind you're feeling like people are infringing upon you, if you feel like you really don't want, if you go, you can say the nicest thing, but if you go to the table with the idea in mind that these people are a pain, after they come back a few times, you may have all sorts of things about them that you don't like. If that's in your mind, no matter what you say, that comes across. At some level, that comes across. But when you have a good thought for them, when you're welcoming them, they are welcomed. you are gathering them in. And this is, well, anyway, it works. And then paying attention to the room. This is what a proper servant does. A proper waiter. If you've ever had, all of us here eat out. When you go to a restaurant and the experience is good, it's because the waitstaff responds when you need them. Even before, they're like there at the exact moment when you need. You didn't have to look for them. You didn't have to wonder what the heck is going on. They're like right there. And the reason that they're right there is that they're standing back. They're not insinuating themselves into the conversation. They're not being overbearing. They're kind of standing back and they're just watching. And they got other tables to take care of. But as they're moving around the room, they're watching the other tables that they're not going to right now. And they just like appear when they need to. And they bring what you need when you need it. Well, this is exactly the same kind of mindset we want to have when we're dealing with people. We don't need to get up to totally get ourselves involved in everything that they're doing. We want to be of service when we can be. We want to provide what we can provide when it's the appropriate time. So service, and what it says above the door when you walk in here every Sunday, is it says proper service. To do the right thing for the right reason at the right time. So the right thing is, I'm paying attention. I've welcomed the people in, I'm paying attention, and I'm open, and I'm allowing this inner guide, you can call it conscience if you want, I'm allowing that to inform me as to what to do next. And then I want to do it at the proper time. Well, in waiting on tables, I did very well at it. Now, I'd totally forgotten about this incident in my life until my youngest daughter took a job as a waitress. And she was complaining. She came home complaining about she's not making enough tips. It's terrible. The people are rude. They're this and that and all these things. And I said, well, let me tell you a story. Did I ever tell you about Sylvia Deal and the Times restaurant? No. So I tell her the story, and I told her to bless the table, and she said, what do you mean, pray for them? Yeah. So, but I tell her the story, and I said, listen, don't worry. Just listen to what I'm saying. Try it and see if it works. If it doesn't work, forget about it. Don't worry about it anymore. And sure enough, she did it. She tried it. And she reported back. And she was reluctant about reporting back, by the way. But she reported back. Tips were up. People seem to be nicer. Well, isn't it interesting that when we're nice, people are nicer? Yes, I know some people are suffering so badly that it really is a big investment to get them feeling in that, to get them to that place where they become nice. But it'll work over time. I mean, these principles that we're talking about here, it doesn't matter if other people cooperate or not. If we keep doing it, it will work. One thing for sure, if we keep doing it, we will feel better. We will feel fulfilled. So, really, this is it. We think about life as a fulfilled life, as really as being a life of service. But it doesn't mean a life of drudgery. And we recall Brother Lawrence. I use this example all the time, but I just really want to recall it. Here we have, it's in the 13th century. Brother Lawrence is the lowliest monk in the monastery. He can't read or write, but he's the happiest guy there. And the abbot notices it. And he says, come up, when you get done with your work today, would you come up to my house? I want to talk to you. And he brings him up there and he talks to him, and he writes down what Brother Lawrence says. And there's a little volume. And the name of the volume is Practicing the Presence of God. And there's a copy of it back there. Very small, it's a quick read. But he talked to him about all sorts of different things. The bottom line was this. He says, listen, this is what I want to know. You got the hardest job here in the monastery. Here's what the guy did. He did all the stuff that nobody else wanted to do, right? He cleaned the chamber pots. He scrubbed the pots and pans. And if you can think about this, scrubbing pots and pans in the 13th century, greasy, it couldn't have been fun. He peeled the potatoes, he did all of this. He slopped the hogs. But he was the happiest guy there, and the abbot wants to know why. why are you so happy? And he said, well, he says, what I do. This is in everything that I do. I practice the presence of God. I practice the presence of God. And so this is what this principle that we're talking about today is all about. It's about saying in all my decisions, whether I'm making decisions with a group of people or whether I'm making decisions by myself, let me practice the presence of God. Let me realize that a loving God is expressing through my conscience. And if I allow it, I can join my conscience with the conscience of others. And that loving God will express through all of us so that we might provide a proper service, the right thing, for the right reason, at the right time, and thereby be helpful to others and also fulfill ourselves. That's enough.
So when I share what needs to be said, I'm still